Snubbing is a workplace bullying technique that I coined for the now infamous narcissistic silent treatment or stonewalling. The silent treatment is exactly as it sounds. Workplace bullies straight up refuse to speak to you, but snubbing is not just stonewalling or the silent treatment. It also includes all of the exclusion, ostracism, and isolation. Snubbing is immature, it's petty, and most of the time, it's not work-related, it's personal. But snubbing is bullying because it triggers your abandonment issues, which really have nothing to do with the workplace and everything to do with your childhood. Abandonment does not mean that your mom left you in swaddling clothes in the reeds on the bank of the River Nile like Moses. That's not abandonment. Your parents may have been around, but they still abandoned you. Abandonment means that someone who was responsible for meeting your needs decided that their needs were more important than yours. You may have literally lost someone due to death, divorce, or some other form of separation. It's just like, she left me. And abandonment is often like that scene out of The Breakfast Club when the Emilio Estevez character asks Allison what her parents do to her, and she says, they ignore me. Most often, abandonment is a type of negative reinforcement in childhood. We all get this faulty programming, this bad wiring that there are so-called good and bad behaviors and emotions, and that if we do or say anything wrong, we're not going to get our needs met. Everyone's going to leave us. Alternatively, you may have experienced some kind of rejection by the other kids in school. A lot of people have this Taylor Swiftian backstory of feeling left out, this chronic nagging sense of not fitting in and not belonging, the cliche on the outside looking in. Some adverse childhood experiences leave scars that last a lifetime. If any of that resonates with you, it's time to ask yourself, what hurts? What about this is hurting me? Because sometimes workplace bullying is not about workplace bullying. It's about the trauma you were already carrying before you walked inside the workplace. The intent of snubbing is to hurt you, and sometimes it does. I have sat alone for 2.5 hours inside an almost empty building with nothing to do, waiting for all 60 of my coworkers, along with their extended family members, to get back from an event to which I alone was not invited. That was a deliberate snub, and it was pure spite. That was a horrible feeling. I get it, it hurts. But ask yourself, what would happen if you actually went out to lunch with these people? What would you talk about? Do you really want to interact with any of these people anyway? Once when I was working for a technical writing agency, I had to attend one of those bullshit all-day trainings where you don't learn anything, and I had to sit through lunch with these people because we were not allowed to go anywhere. Anyway, I had figured out that I had only 2 topics of conversation with these people: gossip and food. Well, I wasn't into the gossip, so I figured out that if I was going to make this work, I had to talk about food. So I began talking about my favorite cuisine, which is Georgian cuisine. There is a country in the world called Georgia. It was part of the Soviet Union, and it's in the Caucasus. Anyway, in Texas, when people don't want to cook, they go out for Tex-Mex. In Russia, it's Georgian or Armenian food. If you haven't tried Georgian food, I highly recommend it, but the only time I've seen a Georgian restaurant outside of the FSU was in London. I won't go into detail here, but I was describing all the dishes and the wine, and these people were looking at me like I was an alien from outer space, and they were looking at each other with very confused expressions, and I realized they thought I was talking about the state. They had never heard of a country called Georgia. It's not that small. And some of these people had master's degrees. Folks, that is about the best that you can expect. I know that snubbing doesn't feel good. It hurts to be excluded, isolated, alone, ignored, no one listens to you, no one is interested in your humanity, your ideas, your thoughts, your feelings. But ask yourself, what is the alternative? These people do not have the capacity to treat you humanely, like a human being. If you do interact with them, it's only going to be more dehumanization. Snubbing reminds me of the Five of Pentacles card in the tarot. The Five of Pentacles is a card in the Minor Arcana that depicts two mendicants in rags, one of whom is on crutches, walking in the snow at night outside a church that is illuminated from within. Tarot cards, like astrological signs and houses, have one basic meaning and then many additional layers of extrapolated meaning, because adult human psychology is complicated and there are not only 12 people in the world. The basic meaning of the Five of Pentacles is suffering, loss, and hardship, especially financial hardship, because pentacles or coins represent money. But what the Five of Pentacles really represents is abandonment. This is the fear of abandonment card. It usually shows up after a breakup. The truth about that card is that you do not want to be inside that church with those freaking people. You know exactly what they are really all about, and you want no part of it. What's it going to be? It will only be more ego games, petty, passive-aggressive, mind games, manipulation, competition, one-upmanship, power struggles, and aggressive, abusive, invasive, violating series of 20 intrusive, inappropriate, unprofessional, personal questions with absolutely no real, sincere, genuine, or honest authenticity, integrity, or boundaries. You need that like you need a hole in your head. You do not need to suffer fools. Narcissists are supposedly defined in part by this sensitivity to rejection, but the truth is that no one likes rejection. But remember what they say, rejection is protection. In interpersonal relationships, the silent treatment is a devastating form of abuse that does a lot of damage, because you have made yourself emotionally vulnerable to this person and depend on this person to get your emotional needs met. In the workplace, when people snub you, sometimes it's hurtful, sometimes not so much. As non-narcissists and non-bullies, we have something called an internal life. If you're like me, you're always very busy with what you have going on upstairs. When workplace bullies snub you, it's weird, but you kind of don't give a shit because you're over here doing you. Part of the function of all abuse is to isolate the victim. All abusers are weak, lazy cowards, and they like a nice, soft, easy target. They want to make sure you don't have any support so that you are more vulnerable to their abuse. In interpersonal relationships, narcissists will try to sabotage your pre-existing relationships with friends and family members through smearing one way or the other. And in the workplace bullies will make a beeline for any potential alliances you might have and actively work to sabotage them. And abusers isolate because isolation works. Quite frankly, you may start to do the abuser's work for them and isolate yourself. Pain is very isolating. When we have trauma, we think we are the only ones who feel this way. We think we are alone and that no one wants to hear any of this stuff. It's like a dog that goes away to die. I have spent the majority of my life in near total isolation, where there were literally only two people in my life, my dad and my therapist, which was not the healthiest. I don't know about you, but if bullies are going to isolate me, I'm going to use my isolation to my advantage. It has given me a lot of freedom, space, and time to think, work on myself, work on my website and YouTube channel, and rework myself into the best version of myself. It's also a relief that allows me to detox from all the negative crap that I picked up as an empath. I know it hurts to be left out, But try to think of snubbing as an opportunity to do what you are supposed to do. Focus on yourself, not the bullies. I hope that helps. Take care.